It's a good morning to you. Welcome to Asake Online. My name is Zenzele Ndebele. This is the Breakfast Club. A few weeks ago, we had a discussion with a lecturer at the Lupane University where we were talking about the zero pass rate in a number of schools in Matabeleland. And there were so many issues that were brought up as the reasons why we have kids who are failing to get even a single pass at grade 7. And some of these included, the poor working conditions for teachers, infrastructure, and the failure by students to read because they don't have the resources, the teachers don't have the time. And also one thing that came out clear was the issue of composite classes, that a teacher can take up to 2 or 3 classes at the same time. And that really compromises the amount of time that the teacher spends with the student. Today in our program, we'll be talking to Nolwazi Mnikwa, who is a programs officer at Masakhaneni Projects. They are working with a number of schools in Matabeleland to try and improve the pass rate. So we want to know from them what are the programs they are doing, the challenges that they face, and probably the plans for the future. What can be done to make sure that at least we have schools that have better learning facilities, but also the pass rates in these schools, they improve. At one point, Zimbabwe was known as one of the best schools in Africa in terms of literacy. And we seem to have redressed in the past years because of the economic hardships. And it looks like the land issue has also contributed to poor infrastructure, because some of these schools in recycled areas do not have the proper infrastructure to actually run schools. And little has been done. 20 years after the land reform, not so many schools, if any, have been built in these resettlements. So in this program, we hope to actually learn some of the work that they are doing and hope that we are going to come up with the solutions. Can you briefly tell us about the program you are implementing, working with schools that have a zero pass rate to try and improve the pass rate?
This project started in the year 2020 after we'd seen the results analysis for the schools, and we realized that from the Matabeleland South Province, 11 schools had recorded a 0% pass rate. And we took it upon ourselves to seek for funding to assist those schools in order for them to improve their pass rate. And we're able to raise funding that could cater for 8 schools. So we had to narrow down from the 11 schools to the 8 schools, and we narrowed down with the assistance of the Ministry of Education. We're able to tell us the challenges of those schools. Furthermore, we conducted a needs analysis from all those schools, and then from the conclusive results that we had, we're able to then identify those 8 schools to work with. So the reason why we started the project, the objective was basically to assist the schools improve their pass rate from 0% to just over 50%.
So when we are talking about the schools, what kinds of schools are these, in what areas?
Okay, so 6 of those schools are what we call satellite schools. Satellite schools are schools that have a mother school, but then because of distances, they are located at a distance that is far away from the mother school, and also the learners come from areas that are quite far from the location of the mother school. So this school is set up just to cater for those learners who have to walk a long distance to get to the main school. So these satellite schools have got a low enrollment. You find that one of the schools that we're working with has got a total of 63 learners. This is from ECDA up to grade 7. So 9 classes recording a total of 63. And you find that in schools like this, because of the low numbers, there is also a limited number of teachers that are then designated to teach at those schools. So for instance, this school with the 63 learners has got 3 teachers, and that's one teacher takes grade 1 and grade 2, and then the other teacher takes on grade 3, 4, and 5, and then the other teacher takes on grade 6 and 7. So what happens is that when it's time for maths, the grade 1 and grade 2 teacher will have the grade 1s and 2s in the same classroom and will dedicate those 35 minutes for maths. That means that the teacher has to divide time within that one period for the grade 2s and the grade 1s. And that's the same thing with the grade 3, 4, and 5 class as well, who are taught by one teacher, and the grade 6 and 7 teacher. And strikingly, because of this allocation of teachers, one such school, we had the teacher teaching ECDA, ECDB, grade 1 and grade 2. And this is one teacher with 4 different classes. What most of the schools do, like the schools that we're working with, because they have three teachers, they will then assigned the SDC, the School Development Committee, to contract a teacher to teach the ECDA and the ECDB class, so that the other teachers that are there, that are sent in from the Ministry of Education, teach the grade 1 to grade 7 class. But in this one school, they were not able to contract the teacher to teach the ECDA and ECDB because parents were not really coming forth in the payment of fees. As a result, one teacher, the ECDA and the grade 1 and grade 2 teacher, ended up having to take on ECDA and ECDB. So those are the kind of schools that we work with. And then 2 of the schools, they are not satellite schools, but then because of the low enrollment, they've got about 5 teachers teaching. And you find that with most of the schools, besides the fact that they have the composite class system, the headmaster or the teacher in charge has got administrative responsibilities. As a result, they spend minimum time in the school, because if there's anything that's needed by the Ministry of Education, if there are workshops, whatever activity is taking place, they have to be there to attend. And in some instances, those are the very same teachers taking on the grade 7 classes.
Yeah, so you talk about someone teaching like A, C, D, A, B, 1, 2, and there is about maybe they teach up from 8 up to 1.
Yes.
And already if you look at the curriculum, you have about 8 subjects. Yes. So this means this teacher is a day, they're giving to less than 20 minutes per subject.
Well, basically, it's far much less than 20 minutes, because if we're going to say a lesson is between 30 and 35 minutes, and you're teaching 4 classes in that 30 and 35 minutes, if it's maths, if it's art, if it's English, that time has to be split in between the 4 classes. That means that the children are not getting enough time allocated.
So you end up having 7 minutes per lesson.
Exactly. And besides that, the infrastructure of the schools is in a terrible state. Most of the schools, besides the 2 that I said are not satellite schools, the rest are located in old former white people's farmhouses, and these buildings have dilapidated. They're in a terrible state. And the new curriculum, there is ICT and all in all, and they do not have provision for those kind of devices. Whereas some of the schools have got no network access, no 3G network access. As a result, even to send a WhatsApp message is something that is far from them. So if we're talking about then ensuring that this new curriculum is effective, there is a challenge to it, because how will these learners in those areas with no network and with no technological devices be able to learn what other learners where there is network and technology are learning? Yeah. So
if you look at these schools that you're working with, did you have any chance of maybe seeing the grade 7 results for last year? How did they perform?
Yes, for 2020 we have seen the results. I'm pleased to say that 3 of the schools they moved from the 0% mark, and one was at 25%, the other at 17%. So yeah, they have moved, although the other schools still recorded at 0%. And with last year, it was actually quite a challenge implementing the program, because there was the unforeseen COVID-19 pandemic, which we all generally didn't know how to respond to it. But in that year, as an organization, I think it was a learning curve for us as we're trying to figure out how we can then implement the program despite the lockdown, despite the incapacitation of teachers, because schools closed in March last year and they reopened towards the end of the year, with the grade 7 classes opening first. But even after the grade 7 classes opened, there was the incapacitation of teachers. So actually implementing the program was a bit of a challenge, and that year to us was a learning curve. But I would say we were able to find alternative means of then implementing the program despite the lockdowns and all. Yeah. So
we're talking about the COVID pandemic, yes, which we saw in many urban areas, the online classes, even the most basic online classes being WhatsApp, teachers sending homework on WhatsApp. Yes. Was there any form of learning in these areas where probably there's no network?
Yeah, well, for majority of last year, really, there wasn't any kind of learning, because like I mentioned, network is a challenge in these areas. So basically, I mean, if you want to get in touch with maybe a head there, you need to send a text message and it will deliver when it delivers, because they have to go look for network sometimes in like uphill places to look for network. So it was a bit of a challenge, but what we have then strategized together with the assistance of the heads from the schools and the parents of the learners is to print work for the learners and then go and distribute to the learners. As an organization, we bought textbooks for the learners, right? And furthermore, with the teachers from the schools, the grade 7 teachers have been sending us work to print on their behalf, and then we take that work and go and distribute it at the schools. We look for the SDC chairperson, and then the SDC chairperson is able to then give the learners the work. Once the work has been written, the SDC chairperson collects the work, we collect it, the teachers mark. So that's what we're doing in the meantime.
Yeah, because my next question basically was going to be, how have you been intervening? And you've talked about how you came in, actually helping by sending work to the schools, despite the fact that there's a lockdown, to make sure that the kids, get. We have talked to other people who are in the same line, and they've said, you find that kids cannot read. And what's the situation in the area?
That's absolutely true. The students, the learners are not, most of them cannot read. Some can just write their name, but most of them cannot read. So what's happened as well in the community is that parents have come together and identified children who may be past Form 4 or A-level within the community who are still sitting at home and doing nothing. And they've asked this person to assist in teaching their children. In one such community, we've got a young man who got 13 points for A-level, and he's been asked by parents to assist the learners with the work that is given to them. And then the parents have also come together to maybe incentivize this young person who is teaching. So that's the thing that's happening in the schools that we're working with. Yes.
And we've had so many, very few numbers. Like we are talking about schools that have 63 students.
Yes.
And looking at the results that we've seen, you find that there's classes like 4 grade 7 students.
Yes.
Why is that?
Right. So the low learner enrollment is because some of these areas are farming communities, and as a result there is low population in those areas and fewer children. And also there's some of these areas are in mining settlements. We've had cases, like for instance in the previous exams, some learners were reported to have dropped out of school and they got involved in gold panning, like illegal gold panning, ukukorokoza. And also sometimes I think it's a mindset issue where parents don't really see the value of education, and as a result they don't encourage their children to learn. And so you find that some of the children drop out because of influence from their parents, and some children also drop out because they think, what is there for me afterwards? So at the end of the day, the children opt to drop out themselves. And also we had an incident of last year of one of the children fell pregnant, and although it was a case of sexual abuse, the case was investigated, but we do have such cases that stem up here and there.
What would you say would be, what would you say are some of the serious challenges that you faced in implementing this project?
Okay, well, I think our biggest challenge was the emergence of the COVID-19 pandemic, because it just disrupted our work plan as we had put it across. And also the incapacitation of teachers has proved to be a challenge, because even if we have the learners there and we want to impact them, as long as they are not teachers within the school, it becomes a challenge in itself. And one of the challenges, the distances that we have to travel, they are quite far. For example, the furthest school that we're working with is 259 kilometers from Bulawayo. When I put it as 259 kilometers, it's just like, oh, okay, maybe it's like a 2-hour drive or something. But then a part of the journey is spent on a dust road, and the road network is terrible, if I can put it that way. So you find that you spend about 6 hours just traveling to the school in itself. And you get there, you have to engage the parents, you have to engage the learners, you have to engage the parents. At the end of the day, you've got limited time to do this. That was one of the challenges that we're faced with, but then we've been able to identify an office space in Gwanda, which is a central location for all the schools that we're working with, so that challenge has been averted to a certain extent.
For anyone who might be listening and want to help the kids or help you do this project, what would you say is the most need? What do they need?
Okay, the learners need library books, because reading is a challenge. Like, in as much as we're able to buy textbooks for the schools, right? And the Ministry of Education has also provided textbooks, but the textbooks are, I can say, limited, right? So they need library books, you know, the kind of books that you would find at an urban school, the kind of books that you'd find at Kumalo, Centenary, whichever school. They need those library books because it will help them to develop themselves as readers. And also because the places, the buildings that they learn in are not conducive for learning. One such school, we went there after it had rained. We got there and there were no learners in the school. Why? Because when it rains, the rivers flood, so the learners are not able to cross. And we walked into one of the classrooms, which was supposed to be the ECDA and ECDB classroom. In that classroom, there was a pool of water. The classroom was basically flooded. So those schools, they need an infrastructure that is conducive to learning. And also, I think maybe other kind of teaching resources that will enable them to learn. As an organization, we're able to provide whiteboards for the teachers to write on, because some of these schools didn't even have blackboards. Charts, we need charts in the schools. If they maybe magazines that people have that they can provide, so that even as teachers are putting up their charts, they've got something to put. Teachers were crying out about stationery. Just a red pen is an expense for the teacher, as the schools are not able to provide. So we need stationery for the teachers, we need stationery for the learners, we need uniforms for the learners, shoes for the learners. Yeah, those are the things that we need. And some of the schools are building classrooms, so if there's any assistance that can be rendered to them, whether material or financially, I think it would go a long way.
Lastly, you're talking about the schools have no blackboards.
Yeah.
As a grade one, you want to see something. When someone talks about a certain word, you want it written.
Exactly.
So if there's not a blackboard, what do they use?
Yeah, that is the challenge. They were actually writing on a wall, just a wall, a grey wall, like the block bricks on the grey wall. That's where the teachers were writing. And I think that is why we have this problem where the learners are not able to read, or they have a hard time grasping numbers, because mostly they hear the audio. They hear the audio that the teacher will be saying, but they don't have the visuals like you're saying. So the visuals are quite critical in aiding effective learning.
What are your plans for 2021?
Yes, we're definitely continuing, and we aim to ensure that all the schools have a pass rate. As we speak, with the opening of schools, we have liaised with one of our partner organizations to conduct an assessment on the learners, so that we are able to evaluate their literacy levels, their numeracy levels, and yeah, so we're going to hit the ground running.
Clearly, there's a lot that needs to be done in terms of infrastructure, capacitating teachers, but also making sure that learning is interesting. As someone who learned in rural areas, going to school can be a long distance, and if there's something, there's nothing that you're actually going for. If you are not that intelligent at school, you might actually not find school interesting. But school should be designed in a way that even those who are not academically challenged or they are not academically gifted can actually find something interesting. It can be drama, it can be sports, it can be other extracurricular activities that are done in schools. But with these schools that don't have the proper infrastructure, obviously there is no extracurricular activities that are being done. So if you are not intelligent, if the teacher doesn't like you, you actually feel like you don't want to go to school. And we hope that a lot of people are going to come on board to support with whatever I can. It can be old magazines, it can be flip charts, it can be library books. I'm sure njengesizwe we can do something to make sure that abantwana bethu learn in proper environments where at least by the time they set to grade 7, they can read and write. We have a situation whereby a few years from now, we will have a whole generation from these schools that cannot read, that cannot write, and that have no academic qualifications. And we seem to be going back to the 60s, if not the 40s. My name is Zenzele Ndebele. Till we meet again in other programs, have a good day.